Sophia took a deep breath as she stood in front of the company building. It was her father's company, the place she had heard so much about but never truly been a part of. She had just returned from completing her master's degree abroad, and instead of stepping into a high position as many expected, she was starting at the very bottom, as a cleaner. It was her father's idea. He wanted her to see things for herself, to understand how the company truly functioned, not from meetings and reports, but by being among the workers, unnoticed. Most importantly, he wanted her to experience how people treated someone they believed had no power or influence.
Sophia didn't argue. She was curious. How did employees behave when they thought no one important was watching? Were they kind and respectful to everyone, or did they change their attitude depending on a person's status? She wanted to find out. Dressed in simple clothes, Sophia entered the building, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. Mrs. Collins, one of the senior employees, greeted her with a polite smile. "You must be Sophia," she said warmly. "Mr. Adams told me about you. Welcome." Sophia smiled. "Thank you, Mum." Mrs. Collins led her down the hallway to the main office, where the other employees were already busy with their morning tasks.
"Everyone, this is Sophia, our new office cleaner," Mrs. Collins announced. "She will be responsible for keeping this place clean." Some employees barely looked up, others gave small, uninterested nods. But one man, Jacob, leaned back in his chair and smirked. "Office cleaner, huh?" he muttered. Sophia pretended not to notice. This was exactly why she was here, to see who people really were when they thought she was nothing. The next morning, Sophia stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her blue and white cleaner's uniform. It felt strange. She had grown up in luxury, never once having to wear anything other than the finest clothes. But this uniform symbolized something more than just a job. It was her ticket into the real world, a chance to see life from a different perspective. Her mother had always reminded her that wealth was a privilege, not a right. Her mother had never forgotten her humble beginnings and had made sure Sophia didn't either. From a young age, she had taught her how to cook, clean, and do basic chores. "Respect is earned by how you treat people, not by how much money you have," she would always say. With those words in mind, Sophia tied her hair back, picked up her cleaning supplies, and stepped into the office. The moment she entered, she felt the shift in the air. Some employees barely noticed her. Others glanced at her with mild curiosity. But one person, in particular, made it clear that he was not impressed. Jacob. Jacob was a senior employee, known for his arrogance and loud voice. He looked at her up and down with a smirk. "Ah, the new cleaner," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Perfect timing. I just spilled coffee on my desk. Clean it up." Sophia looked at the desk. The coffee had clearly been knocked over on purpose, the cup lying on its side with the liquid dripping onto the floor. She glanced at Jacob, who folded his arms, watching her like she was some sort of entertainment. She could feel her heart tighten with anger, but she reminded herself why she was here. Taking a deep breath, she picked up the cleaning cloth and started wiping the mess. Jacob chuckled. "You're slow. If you want to last here, you better learn to be quicker." Sophia said nothing. She continued cleaning, keeping her face calm even though she could feel the heat of embarrassment creeping up her neck. "That's more like it," Jacob said as he leaned back in his chair. Then, as soon as she finished, he grabbed a piece of paper, crumpled it up, and threw it on the floor right in front of her. "Oops," he said with a fake innocent smile. "Missed the trash can." Sophia clenched her fists, but she swallowed her pride and picked up the paper. Jacob laughed. "Good. You're learning." As Sophia stood up, she caught the eyes of another employee, Michael, who had been watching silently. Unlike Jacob, he looked uncomfortable. Their eyes met for a brief second, and Sophia could see the silent apology in them. She smiled slightly, then walked away. She had only just started, but she already knew this was going to be much harder than she expected. The days passed, and Sophia slowly settled into her role as a cleaner. Every morning, she arrived early, dressed in her blue and white uniform, ready to start the day. She cleaned desks, mopped floors, and took out the trash. Tasks she didn't mind.
But what she did mind was Jacob. Jacob had made it his mission to make her life miserable. It started with small things, deliberately dropping trash in places he knew she had just cleaned, calling her in a condescending tone, and making her redo tasks for no reason. But today, he took things to a whole new level. Sophia was wiping down the break room table when Jacob strolled in, holding a plastic bag filled with clothes. He tossed it onto the table beside her. "Take these to the laundry," he said, "and make sure you wash my white shirts properly. No stains. I like them crisp and clean." Sophia frowned, looking at the bag. "I'm here to clean the office, not do personal errands." Jacob raised an eyebrow and let out a dry chuckle. "You're here to do whatever I tell you to do. Now take it and get moving." Before Sophia could respond, Michael, one of the employees who had been watching, finally spoke up. "That's not fair, Jacob," Michael said. "She's the office cleaner, not your personal maid. You can't send her to do your laundry." Jacob turned his head slowly and smirked. "Mind your business, Michael." Michael shook his head. "This isn't right, and you know it." Jacob ignored him and turned back to Sophia. "Well?" he asked, folding his arms. "Are you going to take the clothes, or do I need to remind you who's in charge?" Sophia felt the stares of the other employees in the room. She knew she was supposed to stay quiet and keep her cover, but this was beyond disrespectful. She swallowed her pride and shook her head. "That is not part of my job, sir." For a moment there was silence. Then Jacob laughed, loud and mocking. "Oh, we have a little rebel here, huh?" Before Sophia could react, Jacob picked up a cup of water from the table and poured it over her head. The cold water ran down her face, soaking her hair and uniform. Gasps echoed around the break room. A few people looked away, uncomfortable, while others chuckled nervously, unsure of how to react. Sophia stood frozen, the water dripping from her chin, her heart beating fast, but she refused to snap. She was here for a reason. Jacob grinned. "Next time, make sure the water you serve me is cold. I don't drink warm water." Michael slammed his hand on the table. "That's enough, Jacob!" Jacob shrugged, unfazed. "Relax, Michael. She's just a cleaner. It's her job to handle messes." Sophia clenched her fists, her wet clothes sticking to her skin. She had never felt more humiliated in her life. But she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She simply took a deep breath, grabbed a cleaning cloth, and started wiping the water off the table as if nothing had happened. Michael looked at her with concern. "Sophia," he started, but she shook her head slightly, silently telling him not to push it. Jacob smirked, clearly enjoying the power he thought he had. But Sophia knew something he didn't. His time was coming. Sophia had endured a lot in just a few days: humiliation, insults, and unfair treatment. But she had remained calm, observing, taking mental notes of those who showed kindness and those who followed Jacob blindly. Today, however, things took a darker turn. It was late afternoon, and most of the employees were either at their desks or taking a short break. Sophia was cleaning the conference room when she heard the door click shut behind her. She turned around and found Jacob standing there, leaning against the door with his arms crossed, a smug grin on his face. "You're working hard," he said, stepping closer. "I like that." Sophia stiffened. Something about his tone made her uneasy. She had been around enough arrogant men to recognize when they thought they had power over someone. She kept her expression neutral. "I have work to do, Jacob, if you'll excuse me." Before she could move past him, he reached out and touched her arm, his fingers lingering longer than necessary. Sophia froze. "You know," Jacob said, lowering his voice, "I could make things a lot easier for you." Sophia jerked her arm away, her skin crawling. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice tight. Jacob smirked. "I mean, you're new here, but I have influence. I could make sure you get better treatment, better opportunities, maybe even something bigger than this pathetic cleaning job. All you have to do," he leaned in slightly, "is make me happy." Sophia's stomach twisted in disgust. She took a step back, keeping her eyes locked on him. "No," she said, her voice firm. Jacob's smile faded slightly. "Think about it, sweetheart. You work hard, but no one respects you. I could change that. I could protect you." Sophia clenched her fists. "I don't need your protection." Jacob's expression darkened. "You should be careful how you speak to me. I have a good reputation here, and no one would believe a little cleaner over me." Sophia's pulse pounded in her ears, but she refused to show fear. "Maybe no one will believe me now," she said quietly. "But people always reveal who they truly are. And sooner or later, they face the consequences." Jacob scoffed. Big words for a nobody. He moved past her and yanked open the door. "You'll regret this," he said before walking out. Sophia let out a shaky breath. She had seen enough. As she left the room, she noticed the faces of the employees around her. Some looked at her with sympathy, others avoided her gaze, pretending they hadn't seen what just happened. But a few, like Michael, watched Jacob with narrowed eyes, clearly disgusted. Sophia knew then that not everyone in the office was blind to Jacob's actions. Some were simply afraid to speak out, but they wouldn't have to be afraid for much longer. Because his time was running out. The day of the general staff meeting arrived. It was supposed to be like any other, but what Jacob didn't know was that something big was about to happen. Sophia stood at the back of the conference room, wearing her cleaner's uniform as the employees settled in their seats. Jacob, as usual, walked in with his overconfident smirk, completely unaware that his world was about to shift. At exactly 10 a.m., Mr. Adams, the CEO, walked into the room. The conversations died down as he took his place at the head of the table. He was a man of presence, calm, yet commanding. "Thank you all for coming," Mr. Adams began. "I've called this meeting for a very important announcement, but before we begin..." His eyes landed on Sophia, who stood quietly by the door. Before he could say another word, Jacob's voice cut through the room. "Excuse me, sir," Jacob said loudly, turning to face Sophia. "Why is she here?" Sophia held his gaze but remained silent. "This is a meeting for important people," Jacob continued with a smug grin. "We don't need the cleaning staff here. She should leave." A few employees shifted uncomfortably. Michael clenched his jaw, looking ready to say something, but before he could, Mr. Adams raised a hand. The room fell silent. Mr. Adams took a slow breath before speaking. "Mr. Jacob," he said, his voice steady, "I personally invited Miss Sophia to this meeting." Jacob's smirk faltered. "But sir, she's just..." "Enough," Mr. Adams said firmly. "You've said quite enough." Jacob looked around the room, clearly confused. Sophia noticed how his fingers twitched slightly. For the first time, doubt was creeping into his confidence. Mr. Adams continued, looking around the table. "For months now, I have been preparing for a major change in this company. As most of you already know, I will be retiring in a few months, and I have taken the time to carefully select my successor." A murmur went through the room. Jacob straightened up, his ego returning. It was clear he thought he was the chosen one. Sophia held back a smile. "And today," Mr. Adams said, "I want to formally introduce you all to the person who will take my place as the next CEO of this company." The room fell into a dead silence. Jacob looked expectantly at Mr. Adams, waiting to hear his name. Instead, Mr. Adams turned to Sophia and said, "My successor is Sophia." The reaction was immediate. Gasps filled the room. Some employees froze in shock, while others whispered to each other in disbelief. Jacob, however, went pale. "Sophia," he repeated, blinking rapidly. "Sir, that's not possible. She's just a..." Mr. Adams cut him off. "She is not just anything, Mr. Jacob." His voice was sharp now. "She is my daughter, Miss Sophia Adams, and she has been working undercover in this company to see the true character of those who work here." The entire room erupted in stunned silence. Jacob's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Sophia lifted her chin slightly, watching as realization finally sank into Jacob's face. Everything he had done, the insults, the humiliation, the harassment, had been witnessed by the one person he should have feared most. and this was just the beginning of his downfall. The silence in the conference room felt heavy. Jacob's face had lost all its color, his usual smirk replaced with wide-eyed shock. "This has to be a joke," Jacob muttered, shaking his head. "Sir, how can you make a low-level employee the CEO?" Mr. Adams leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Jacob, do you know what happens when people assume things without facts?" Jacob opened his mouth, but no words came out.
"Sophia," Mr. Adams continued, turning toward his daughter, "tell them about your qualifications." Sophia, still in her cleaner's uniform, stood tall. "I have a master's degree in human resources, along with professional certifications in management and corporate leadership," she said, her voice clear and steady. A few employees gasped. Others exchanged shocked glances, realizing the person they had overlooked was far more qualified than any of them had assumed. Mr. Adams nodded and continued, his tone firm. "I suggested that Sophia start from the bottom, not because she wasn't capable, but because I wanted her to understand the core of this company. I wanted her to see firsthand how things are run, how employees behave, and who truly upholds the values of this company." His voice grew sharper. "What I did not expect was for my own daughter to experience such humiliation at the hands of someone who should have been a leader." The weight of his words hung in the air. Jacob swallowed hard, but quickly tried to regain his confidence. "Sir," he stammered, forcing a chuckle. "I mean, come on, we were just having a little fun. She was playing the role of a cleaner. How were we supposed to know?" Mr. Adams's eyes darkened. "So, you think it's acceptable to mistreat people simply because you believe they are unimportant?" Jacob shifted uncomfortably but didn't answer. "Sophia has been reporting everything to me," Mr. Adams continued. "I know about the insults, the humiliation, and the unethical favors you tried to force upon her." A few gasps rippled through the room. Some employees turned to look at Jacob with disgust. "You thought you were untouchable," Mr. Adams said, his voice steady but cold. "You thought your reputation would protect you, but your actions have spoken louder." Jacob gripped the table, his breathing quickening. The confidence he had carried so effortlessly was starting to crumble. Sophia watched him. This was the moment he realized he had played the game wrong. Mr. Adams took a deep breath and leaned back in his chair. "This company does not tolerate abuse of power, Jacob," he said, "and there will be consequences for your behavior." Jacob's face drained of all confidence. And for the first time, he looked afraid. The room was dead silent. All eyes were on Jacob, whose face was now pale with fear. His arrogance had vanished, replaced with something he had never expected to feel: panic. Mr. Adams looked at him with cold disappointment. "Jacob, effective immediately, you are fired from this company." Jacob's eyes widened in horror. "Sir, please, you can't do this." Mr. Adams remained unmoved. "This company has no place for men like you. I will not allow someone who abuses their position to continue working here." Jacob staggered backward, his hands trembling. "Sir, please, I have a family. A wife, children, they depend on me." Sophia watched as desperation crept into his voice. Mr. Adams leaned forward slightly, his expression unchanged. "You forgot about your wife and children when you were harassing my daughter, didn't you?" Jacob's mouth opened, but no words came out. "You treated someone you thought was beneath you like trash," Mr. Adams continued, his voice calm but firm. "And now you beg for mercy when the consequences come knocking." Jacob dropped to his knees. "Please, sir, I made a mistake. I can change, just give me another chance." But Mr. Adams had heard enough. He pulled out his phone and dialed. "Inspector? Yes, we're ready." Jacob's eyes darted around the room, panic setting in. Whispers spread among the employees as they realized what was about to happen. No, Jacob muttered, shaking his head. "Sir, please don't do this to me." Before he could say another word, the office doors swung open. 2 uniformed police officers stepped inside. The moment Jacob saw them, he sank lower, his entire body trembling. "Mr. Jacob," one officer said. Jacob turned to Mr. Adams, tears forming in his eyes. "Please, sir, I swear I didn't mean any harm. It was all a misunderstanding." Sophia felt no sympathy. She had seen his true nature, How he had laughed when he humiliated her, how he had threatened her, how he had touched her without permission. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Mr. Adams gestured to the officers. "Take him." One officer grabbed Jacob by the arm, while the other pulled out a pair of handcuffs. "No, please, don't do this!" Jacob screamed, struggling, but it was useless. The entire office watched in silence as the once powerful Jacob was dragged away like a criminal. As he was led past Sophia, he turned to her with wild, desperate eyes. "You did this to me!" he shouted. "You ruined me!" Sophia met his gaze without fear. "No, Jacob, you ruined yourself." The officers pulled him through the doors, his pleas fading down the hallway. And just like that, he was gone. The office felt different after Jacob was taken away. The tension that had been lingering for weeks seemed to dissolve, replaced by a mix of relief, guilt, and reflection. Some employees who had laughed at Jacob's cruel jokes now looked ashamed, avoiding Sophia's gaze. Others, like Michael, stood taller, knowing they had done the right thing. Mr. Adams let the silence settle before clearing his throat. "Today," he said, his voice strong yet calm, "you have all witnessed an important lesson." The employees turned their full attention to him. "This company does not belong to me alone," he continued. "It belongs to all of you, the people who work hard every day to make it successful. But success is not just about numbers or profits. It is about character. It is about how we treat each other, not just our superiors, but those we believe have nothing to offer us." He let his words sink in. "There were those among you who chose kindness and integrity despite the pressure to follow a bully." He glanced at Michael and a few others. "And for that, you will be rewarded." Murmurs spread through the room as Mr. Adams turned to his assistant, Mrs. Collins, who handed him a folder. "Effective immediately, those who demonstrated honesty and kindness in this workplace will receive promotions and incentives. People like Michael, Mrs. Collins, and others who stood against mistreatment will be given higher responsibilities with better rewards." Some employees gasped. Michael's eyes widened in shock. "Sir, really?" Mr. Adams nodded. "You chose to do what was right, even when it was hard. That is the type of leadership this company needs." Michael swallowed hard, his hands shaking slightly as he nodded. "Thank you, sir. I won't disappoint you." Mr. Adams smiled. "I know you won't." Then he turned toward Sophia. His expression softened as he stepped forward and pulled her into a warm embrace. "I am proud of you," he said. "You have shown strength, wisdom, and patience. You endured things no one should have had to, and yet, you never lost your dignity." Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, taking in the warmth of her father's embrace. This was not just about business. This was about trust. She had earned her place, not because she was the CEO's daughter, but because she had proven herself. As they pulled apart, Mr. Adams turned back to the employees. "Sophia will take over as CEO, and I expect each of you to treat her with the same respect you would give anyone in a leadership position. She has worked hard, she has learned, and she is more than capable." Sophia stepped forward, taking a deep breath. "As CEO," she said firmly, "this company will run on principles of fairness, respect, and integrity. No one will be judged by their title, but by their actions. If you work hard, you will be rewarded. If you abuse your power, you will face consequences. Simple." A few employees nodded, while others still looked uneasy, processing everything that had happened. But Sophia wasn't worried. Change had begun, and she was ready.